Lord, I thank you for this day. I thank you for, again, the celebration of you coming amongst us, you loving us so much, showing yourself in human form. We ask, O Lord, that you continue to open our hearts and our minds to see you and follow you wherever you might lead. All in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Earlier this week, I was visited by two separate children. I had two separate children come and visit me in the office today, or this week. The first child who came to visit me was a 5-month-old baby named James Thunder. His parents were visiting, and they were visiting his great aunt, and they came from Alabama, and they had James Thunder all dressed in his orange and blue Auburn outfit. That other school shall not be named. I got to hold James Thunder, and at first he was a little squirmy, as of course a little baby would, being given from mother to a strange man. But then as I started to hold him, I just kind of started rocking back and forth a little bit, just like so. And he settled down and rested beautifully as we talked between his great aunt and the parents and I. When it was time to go, I handed James Thunder back to Mama, and little James Thunder, he smiled at me. He's a happy baby. I tell you, nothing will melt your heart faster than a baby smiling at you. I mean, I was just on cloud 9 the rest of the day. Now that smile that I got from James Thunder reminded me of the Christmas song, Little Drummer Boy. I know you're all familiar with it. A poor boy has only his drum with which to offer a gift for the newborn king. And as you know, he comes and simply says, "Shall I play for you? Pa-rum-pa-pum-pum." Mary nodded, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum. The ox and lamb kept time, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum. And he played his drum for him, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum. He played his best for him, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum, pum. And the last line, then he smiled at me, pa-rum-pa-pum-pum, me and my drum. I share this with you because Christmas gives us a chance to see who God really is. A lot of us have grown up or continue to even have wrong images of God. Maybe distant, maybe uncaring, maybe angry or even abusive. But Christmas reminds us that God smiles at humanity. That when he looks at us, he actually smiles at us. For it was the reason why Jesus came, because God so loved the world that he sent his only Son. God came to us in the man Jesus Christ because he loves us and desires everyone to be with him in a healed, reconciled relationship through faith in his Son. And it doesn't matter what your status is, it doesn't matter what your background is, it doesn't matter what your education is or how thick your wallet is. If you come with that humble heart, like the little drummer boy did, God smiles at you. God smiles at you even when it seems like you can't perform for him or you can do well for him. God does not smile at you just because you've done good. He doesn't smile at you just because you're trying to live a good life. He smiles at you when you approach him with that humble heart and with your whole being and simply say, "Here I am, Lord. May I be an instrument for your glory." That's what makes him smile. Jesus gave up his throne in heaven and came to earth to save you from sin's penalty and from the shame and guilt of wrong. Because he determined that he was not going to lose you. He determined that you were not a lost cause, that you were not someone who was simply to be discarded. As it says in John 1, as we just heard, he came to that which was his own, and to all who received him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. So Christmas reminds us of God's great love for us, of how he smiles at us. And it's important, I think, for many of us to remember this, that God is not against you. He is really for you, and he has made every way possible for you to come and be with him. So Christmas should hopefully help to dispel these false images that sometimes we still carry about what God thinks of me. He has an enduring smile for humanity. And it gives us a chance to really say again, do I believe this message? Or to me, is Christmas just simply a lot of warm nostalgia and blinking lights and maybe nice family traditions? All really great, but if that's all that Christmas is for you, And ultimately, when you look at the world around you, or even maybe at your own world, Christmas is really just a warm glass of milk. Makes you feel good, and gives you some comfort, but it doesn't really offer any real solutions to real problems. Christmas should challenge us to say, well, if God really does love us so much that he gave us his own son to free us, to reconcile us, to give us, like we said, hope, love, joy, peace, this is something that we should really internalize and make it about such things, instead of just making it just nice and cozy and warm. Those are all great. Is it deeper? Like the little drummer boy, we come with open hearts and say, here I am. We are a poor people too. Harumpa-pum-pum. Jesus smiles at you. Harumpa-pum-pum. And he comes. The second child that came to visit me this week was a precious 2-year-old named Brian. Now, he came with his parents to see Grandma, and they came to my office to say hi. Now, Brian, being a 2-year-old, was curious of many things. He loved the decorative balls on the coffee table, so he would go over and start playing with that. He would then go over to the giant crayon piggy bank that I have in my office. He would take that up. Then he went over to the keyboard, and he started typing on that. And then he went over to go have some M&Ms and started munching on those. And then next thing I knew, he was out in the courtyard, and he was plopping down in the middle of the courtyard out there, and he was looking at a lizard. You had to keep your eye on Brian, because he was always moving. See, the Christmas story not only reminds us of who God really is, of how he smiles at us, the Christmas story also reminds us of how God is on the move, and how he calls us to move with him. See, believing in Jesus is not simply meant to be a wink and a nod to God. Belief is meant to move us, and to do so in a way that keeps our eyes on Jesus. You're like that 2-year-old. If you did not keep your eyes on him, he was off to somewhere else, and you missed what he was up to. Okay? And God's the same way. You have to keep your eyes on him. Keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, as it will say later in the book of Hebrews. Because otherwise, if you don't, God's going to be moving on to something else, and you might be missing out on what he wants you to do. Remember what the shepherds did after they heard this good news and they believed it when the angel came? Luke 2 says the shepherds hurried off to find Mary and Joseph and the baby. And they spread the word concerning what had been told to them about this child. So to the wise men, they began their journey from afar, following yonder star. In both cases, faith moved them. They kept their eyes fixed on what God was doing and what God was asking of them, and it led them to keep going wherever God was leading them. It changed their course of action. So if believing in Jesus Christ, you are a child of God, upon whom he smiles, then God is going to ask you, and does ask you, to partner with him in helping his kingdom to be established on earth. You must keep your eyes on Jesus, or you will miss out on what he's doing next. Jesus did not come to earth simply for you to believe in him so you can be where he is. Although that is true, he also came so that you can work with him on earth. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. We are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. So these two lessons we have from these two children that visited me this week. The idea that Christmas should remind us that God smiles at us, that he loves us with that adoring smile that is only so wrapped up in a perfect child. And God also asks us to move with him, to keep our eyes fixed on what he's doing, where he's going next, because he wants you to partake and share with him in that joy of what he is doing on the earth. You know, Christmas certainly can keep us busy. There's a lot of things going on that I know we've all been a part of. There's cards to write, there's shopping to do, there's of course then wrapping of the gifts, there's the baking, there's the traveling, there's the visiting, etc., etc. Anybody already exhausted? But sometimes we can be so busy that we kind of have to ask ourselves a deeper question. Is there a meaning beyond all of this? In other words, I can be busy, but is there purpose? Follow me? There can be activity, but is it accomplishing? I like what Erwin A. Britton said. The cuddly, cooing infant in the manger may evoke warm feelings and sentimental thoughts, but Jesus has a message and a mission which we dare not lose in an ocean of wrapping paper. I think for a lot of Christians, I think for a lot of believers, we really aren't sure of our purpose, or really what we're here for, or what our work for God is. And it's usually because of one of two things. Either one, because you still don't really believe that God loves you, or that God really smiles at you, and so you're unsure of your true identity. You're still kind of caught in those wrong images that, well, why would God want to use me anyway? Who am I? Or, secondly, you've become so complacent with the message of Jesus, yeah, I know he loves me, yeah, I know I'm going to heaven, that you've grown cold. And therefore, you're not really about doing anything. You're just kind of waiting for your time to expire. In either case, you miss out on your call. So this Christmas, I challenge you to ask God two things. One, pray that the Lord give you a spirit of wisdom and revelation to see who you are, to see how he sees you, that you would know and even see his smile for you. And then secondly, ask God how he wants you to move with him, to bring that unity to all things in heaven and on earth under Christ. Lord, how do you want me to work with you to establish your kingdom on earth as it is in heaven? Those two things, those two messages, those two themes, Christmas reminds us of. Who God really is, and thereby who you really are. And secondly, how he's asking you to move with him, to work with him in this establishment of his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. You need to do both. You need to have that balance. No one else can do it for you. Each of you has been given a unique sphere of influence. Each of you has been given a unique area of expertise. Each of you has a certain realm of relationships that only you can reach in your own authority that God gives you. I cannot go into the teaching world and start doing those things there. I cannot go into the business world and start doing those things there. I cannot go into certain family situations and do things there. I can only be about that which God has given me. So it is up to each of us to take that unique authority that Christ has given us, knowing who we are, and move with him in each of those areas to bring about his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, in that unique area of life. That is how the church and how the kingdom life of God grows. Not through just simply waiting for a quote-unquote paid clergy person to do it all. Lord knows we can't. We're just the poor boys too. So these two themes from these two children, from James Thunder and from Brian, I bring to you this Christmas day. Kind of unique, that indeed, on this day of all days, we're reminded that a little child